I think sometimes if our life is not moving in the direction we want, maybe we haven't decided. If we're kind of stuck in a doorway, it's like, we, with the culture now, we want to keep our options open. And what happens is nothing happens in our life. And it's probably our fault because we haven't decided. We haven't committed to something in our heart. This is the path that I feel called to and that I'm ready and committed to walk. So 2 years ago, I was deciding if I should go to the seminary or not. So at this point, I wasn't really discerning if I wanted to be a priest. You're not supposed to do that because you do that when you're in the seminary. I was kind of deciding if I want to even go. Do I want to go to the seminary or not? And I learned a really valuable lesson in the process that I want to share with you today that I think is valuable to everyone, but especially young people. I think a lot of young people are kind of struggling with what I was struggling with. And so to kind of begin the process to decide or discern if you want to go to your local seminary, you approach the seminary, you approach someone there and you say, hey, I'm thinking about this, So I went on a retreat. I met with the director of the seminary many times to kind of discuss, the process, where I am, everything that's kind of involved, and just to see if my heart was in the right place. And I think, even the military, people in the military say, especially men, like it's kind of intoxicating to be around, just men with a purpose, and you're all there, and there's a camaraderie. And I think you feel that as you start to enter into circles of men, young men who are really in love with God and who are searching for, just searching for the vocation in general. So it was really good to be around a lot of young men like that. Another thing I did was I went separately to like a spiritual director. I ended up going to a priest of Opus Dei, and their vocation, like their mission, their unique charism is discernment. So I thought, what better way to kind of help me or discern where I am in the process, or to take this, should I take this step? And so I've kind of done all that. I'm in touch with the director. I'm in touch with people there, trying to decide if I should even apply. Should I even apply? Should I take this step? And so I go to this spiritual director, and I'm kind of laying out what's in front of me to him, right? Okay, I'm laying out like where I am in my life, my gifts, like why I'm thinking about this, maybe what's in the way. And so I kind of presented to him, and I think a lot of people do this. I presented to him like my decision, and I was looking for help. But the mistake that I made is I expected him to tell me, well, I don't think that you should do this. I don't think you're ready, or maybe this isn't for you. Or I expected him to say, no, maybe you should do this. I think, where you are, you should definitely go and see if this is for you. And so I was trying to take off the responsibility of making that decision, and I was putting it on someone else. And I remember I laid all this out for him, and he looked at me, after I was done, he looked at me like he was so confused, and he looked at me like I had totally missed the point or what I was doing. Because I presented him with these two decisions, should I go, should I not go, what do I do? And he finally said, well, the right decision is the one that you make. The decision that you make, that's the right decision. And it really confounded me. I think we put a lot of emphasis on like fate the right decision, because with a big life decision, any big life decision, what happens is we hesitate or we're afraid to make the wrong decision. And sometimes what happens is we make no decision. A lot of young people today in their 20s and their 30s are kind of stuck in this place of not making a decision because we're afraid to make the wrong decision, and then we make no decision. So this process that I went through was probably about 4 to 6 months. And at the end of it, that was the most valuable, because I didn't go. I decided not to go. I decided that just, this maybe, I don't think this is for me, at least not at that time. I didn't feel called to it. And the most valuable thing that I learned is that we have to take responsibility for our decisions in a spiritual way. I'm talking about like in a worldly way or, career, job wise. We're so afraid of like missing out, right? Like, oh, God's plan or God's will for me, if it doesn't happen or this way, or if this isn't it, then I don't know what's for me. And I think the reality is that God will, and this is what he told me, this is what the spiritual director told me that day. He's like, whatever you choose, whatever decision that you freely make, God will rejoice in your decision. If it's something that you choose with your heart, that you're going to commit to, God will back you up. The decision you make, he will support you, and he will provide for your life in that decision. Because whether you, and I think this is what he told me, like whether you go to the seminary or not, whether you decide to go, it has to be freely chosen by you. It's a free decision. No one else can make the decision for you. And so not just me, like I think a lot of young people especially, but not just young people, are kind of afraid to make decisions, afraid to make commitments. And there's also like a element of, if you make a mistake, you'll learn. Like, it's okay. God will reroute you to the path that he is calling you to ultimately. But that's the most valuable thing I've learned, and I've kept it with me, since these 2 years, since this whole process of like, you decide, like whatever, it's your choice. You have free will. God gave you free will, and you have to exercise that free will, and don't be afraid to make a decision, because God will like sustain you in that decision. And I remember for me, leaving that kind of encounter, I want to say maybe it was a week later or 2 weeks. I think it was a week later. I was just deciding, like, what should I do? What should I do? And I remember, I think we tell God things, like we decide things, but we don't really feel it in our heart, or we tell him things. But I remember one night I really felt it in my heart, and just kind of surrendering my decision. And I told God, you know what? I think I'm drawn to a career and a family. Like, I think that's what I choose. Like, that's my decision. That's what I want. And about 2 weeks later, I had a job in the Texas Medical Center, doing something that I wanted to do, and I still have the job today. So, I think sometimes if our life is not moving the direction we want, maybe we haven't decided. If we're kind of stuck in a doorway, it's like, with the culture now, we want to keep our options open. And what happens is nothing happens in our life. And it's probably our fault because we haven't decided. We haven't committed to something in our heart. This is the path that I feel called to, and that I'm ready and committed to walk. And so I think for a lot of us, God is just waiting for us to make a decision. Like, he's presented us with options, and he wants you to choose. And I think maybe there's not I can't say there's the best choice, It's not like you weigh, this is better, this is not, like this is more valuable in my life, this is not. I think it's just like, what do you feel called to? What do you want? What do you want? So maybe some of you have experienced that in your life of what decision should I make? Is there such a thing as fate? Is there, can I make a wrong decision? I mean, yeah, we can all make mistakes, but God will ultimately guide us in our path. So, like this video, if I said anything that brought value to your life, and subscribe, because I'm going to be coming out with new videos at least once a week, and other videos that I have some unique ideas for, so it's going to be awesome. Subscribe. So until then, I'll see you next time. God bless.